Welcome to our podcast. The aim of this podcast is to explore a wide range of issues around the workplace, around technology, and we hope that you're going to take something of interest from them. We're very lucky at InterQuest to be able to draw from a wide range of our clients, of our collaborators, of a broad range of contacts, all of whom are experts in their individual area. So we hope that you enjoy it, we hope that you take something from it, and we very much look forward to hearing from you. Today I spoke to Bertie Tonks, the Global Director of People and Culture at Collinson Group. We covered a lot of ground today. Bertie has made a very impressive career for himself by being true to his own values and his personality. We talk about that. We talk about how he's managed to change the cultures and behaviours of the organisations that he's worked in. Digital as an enabler in cultural transformation and some of the technologies that he's used to empower that. He talks a lot about advice to any of you that are listening about how to develop a career in culture and people. So without further ado, let's hear from Bertie. Hello everybody, welcome to the second of InterQuest's podcasts. Today we're joined by a very good friend of mine and one of our clients, Bertie Tonks. Bertie is the Global Director of People and Culture at Collinson Group. I've asked Bertie to join us today because he is one of those rare people that's been able to maintain all of his character all the way through his career, and to his credit, I think that's what gives him his biggest differentiator. So thank you very much for joining us today, Bertie.
Great, Chris. Hey, thanks very much for having me along. Looking forward to the discussion.
So as a brief introduction, Bertie's had a career as a head of talent in a number of different roles across a broad range of industries and geographies. So it's media, I'm going to read it down here, leisure, entertainment, oil and gas, finance and retail. You've worked in the UK, you've worked in Europe, you've worked in the Middle East, so you've got a very good kind of cultural awareness. And that's kind of led you now to Collinson, a global loyalty, travel experience, insurance and assistance company. 2,200 people, 18 different countries. I know Bertie through a slightly different lens, proud father, I can say it now, I hope, a veteran skateboarder. We both share a love for 80s, 90s and 2000s hip hop. Exactly right. But my introductions take far too long, so I need to get it over to you, Bertie. So would you mind just explaining a bit about you and a bit about your role in Collinson? Can we start
Brilliant,
there?
Chris. Thank you. Yeah, so wow, you've done your research, haven't you? That's I'm very impressed. So I'm the Global Director of People and Culture for Collinson. I won't talk about Collinson, you've kind of already outlined that, but we're a brilliant organisation, and I have a team of around 50 people across 24 locations around the world. Yeah. Brilliant team. I've got to tell you, I'm so proud of who we are, everything that we achieve pretty much on a daily basis. And I think I've been at Collinson now for around 6.5 years. Yeah. And I can look back probably for 6.25 of those years with absolute pride in everything that we've achieved. And part of that is just because I think we've been able to adopt a very, very simple principle of starting from a different place. Yeah. And that permeates pretty much through everything that we do.
And what did you walk into then? Was it? I mean, can you remember that far back? You must have changed it colossally by now. But what did you walk into, and what were kind of the immediate thoughts? Well, I'm going to change direction here.
Yeah, well, so we're a really entrepreneurial organisation, and prior to me taking on this current role, which was around 2.5 years ago, we had 2 HR directors that were in place before that, and I was looking to move on because I was thinking I want something a bit bigger, a bit different in my life, and I definitely had no desire to become an HR director at any point in my career. Yeah. I guess we can talk about that.
A lot of love out there to all those HR directors, but still,
it definitely just didn't play in my own trajectory. No. And then when the last HR director left, the board offered me a role doing a new HR director, and I said, to be honest with you, I think you're crazy. Why would you want to employ me? I think there are some incredible people that work in the world of HR. I've worked with many of them, but the profession is not something that I feel has really moved with the times, and I don't think that personally it's a role for me. And so they said, why on earth would you say that? I said, because if I'm going to do this, I want to do something a bit different. And so the move towards people and culture was way more than just a label change, actually. It was a representation of a real shift in the way that we focus our attentions around people. And some of that was as much around making sure that we are responsible for challenging the heck out of our leadership as much as we do challenging our people on a daily basis. So that's I think it's a huge part of our success, but massively important.
And how's the leadership taken to that then? Because of course, if you're not used to that kind of inquisition, sometimes you're going to push back, sometimes you're not going to understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
How have you been able to kind of positively challenge the equilibrium and actually get your point to land?
Well, so this is my first ever board role. I've sat on executive teams in a number of organisations, and in taking on that role, I take it really personally. So even from the early days, when someone leaves our company, I take it really personally if they leave and they say that they've had a bad experience. Believe it or not, this is the sorts of stuff that I take home with me on the train in the evening. I'm like, how could this happen? We're working so hard to make sure we're giving you a great experience. And so I think part of the success so far, and it's not all been successes, of course, has been the fact that we are taking it so personally, both me and my team, every step of the way.
Yeah, and I guess it's changing the paradigm, isn't it, from what they were used to, what the business was used to, from that function to where you're trying to take it now. So go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say because the challenge around our leadership, I think people in our organisation already knew me as someone that would provide very healthy challenge. Yeah. But if there's one superpower, sounds somewhat cheesy, that I know I have, it's around people. In fact, that's exactly it. Yeah. I see my superpower being around every single interaction that I have. Almost like I'm very visual. I think of it as kind of turning on lights, and I probably feel like I turn on 1,000 lights every day through the interactions that I have, because that's part of my role as a leader. But the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today is mostly because it's always played to my strengths anyway. So
let's talk a bit about that. So I think for any aspiring head of people, head of culture, or a traditional kind of HR practitioner wanting to get into that, I think people will be very interested in understanding how you've managed your own career to get to this point.
Yes.
So are there any kind of inflection points? Are there any, it's not necessarily giving people advice, but just paint it out for people. How did you manage to do it? And also maintain the uniqueness of you, which I think is one of your greatest strengths.
Oh, thanks, Chris. It's I didn't know at 25 what I wanted to do, and at 47 I still don't. What I do know is that I'm doing something that I really, really love, and I think I would urge anyone, no matter what point you're at in your career, if you're doing something that, of course we have things that are frustrating every day, all of us, but if you're not doing something that you love that plays to your strengths, then honestly spend some time this weekend thinking about it, because there's plenty of other opportunities out there for you to consider. And that's been a real key driver for me. I've been opportunistic. I've done lots of jobs from sheet metal. I've worked on oil and gas platforms with some of the people around kind of team development. And I've been really fortunate enough to work with some really cool, really inspirational people in my career. I've been, dare I say, wise enough along my career to also stop and observe about what's making them so special. What is it that's really unique about those people that are successful, and have an ability to be able to really connect with people and bring them and motivate them on a journey. Of course, we learn from people that aren't so good. I tend to focus more on people's strengths as an opportunity for learning, rather than focusing on people that aren't very good at anything and I'll do the opposite.
Yeah, I was talking to our chairman the other day, and he coaches a number of people in the organisation, and it was it's the difference between catching people doing bad things and turning it into catching people doing good things. Behaviours you can reinforce, and finding the good in the individual and amplifying that. And I think that's a big difference we've seen in our organisation over the last couple of years. And have there been any kind of dead ends you found yourself in, you kind of thought, well, I can't keep going down here. I need to make either a change in the environment or a change in me to get myself back on track. Because I do see that with some HR practitioners and professionals that we see. They find themselves with a really good skill set, but maybe in a big company, maybe they're not being listened to. Perhaps they can't get their point, as I said before, to land properly. Have you found yourself in those types of challenges?
I have definitely. I mean, early on in my career, I kept being told, you need these qualifications to progress. You're doing well, you need these qualifications. And it's in my nature that I don't really like being told what to do. Actually, I don't think people generally like being told what to do. So I only started doing my HR qualifications, my masters, etc., at the point at which people stopped telling me to do those things.
Okay.
But I think it's really important that you don't lose who you are in your career development. You will have so many people, or even organisations as a system, that will almost try and cajole you into fitting into the mould. Don't fall into that trap. Like, fight it every step of the way. That's not countercultural, actually. It's not that you stand out in the wrong way within the culture that you're working within, but your business, any business, is not going to benefit from having a bunch of cookie cutter people. Actually, we want and need differences. There's enough research out there to say the business case for diversity is already done. Like, it's not even a conversation. So, you are diverse, and do not lose that in any element of your differences that you bring into work every day. Use that to your advantage.
I think, I would really want to echo that, because we've done disc profiling in the company. So red, yellow, blue, green. And your normal self and your adapted self. And we see challenges where people are having to stress themselves so hard in the company. You've got to become someone else to be able to do your job. Now, some people adapt it really easily because the market means they've got to behave in a slightly different way. If you happen to be working in, telco or banking or something else. But you generally see stress when someone's having to put a false face on, come to work. And people that are harmonious, you just come and just be who you are, give it the best version of yourself, tend to progress quicker and tend to foster more authentic relationships with their peers.
100%. You've probably heard the expression around diversity and inclusion. I know there's lots of talk around this, but diversity being invited to the party, inclusion being asked to dance when you're at the party. Well, certainly at Collinson, our belief is also a focus on the belonging, which is the piece around being able to dance like no one else is in the room. And I think historically, a lot of culture change programs and big transformation programs in organisations, if you look at the works of Cotter and many of the experts going back, great deal of evidence to show you they don't work. And I think largely, certainly from a cultural perspective, is largely because we do a one-size-fits-all. So one of the things that I've learned, and actually we're playing around with this a lot over the last 3 years, and it's working, is instead of one-size-fits-all big programmatic activity, we're looking at these 1, 2 or 10 people over here, and what's unique about them, and what's these 100 people in terms of their characteristics over here that's unique, and 500 over here, and we're creating programs of activity that connects with these people in their small differences, and using that as an ability to bring everyone on the journey in a different way. And what you're getting then, of course, is very different set of messages which are calling out to the unique needs and differences of our individuals.
And do you do that across, it might be an odd question, but do you do it across geographies? So do you find different people with different interests, but one might be in London, one might be in America, one might be in Asia somewhere, and you try and pull them together, or have you got to that stage of it yet?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're in 24 locations around the world. And we're hugely diverse. And in Dubai, for example, it could be mostly nationals. Where the Western expats are the exception. So again, it's not a one size fits all. Just frankly doesn't work. So what we do is make sure we engage very heavily in the different voices. I had a meeting on a positive action group this morning around D&I, where because we formulated a group of people who are very, very different in terms of their perspectives, some of the challenges that came out that I won't share here today, oh my gosh, were horrific. And you think, if we didn't have that diversity, if leadership teams, if management teams or teams don't have that diversity of thought and input, honestly, we're just holding the business back. So I'm really passionate about this.
Has it been a struggle to get people to, it's difference, isn't it, between hearing their voices and actually people feeling that they can have a voice? Has that been a challenge at all? Because I see questions in companies, people are giving feedback all the time, and the company is deaf to it.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that then suppresses the voice. So how have you got around that, or have you seen any challenges around that?
Yeah, so we've got things like employee-led networks, and which in my mind are a platform for a voice to be heard and a story to be told.
Yep.
There's a piece beyond that. That's important. They are important. They have a good role. But there's a piece beyond that, which is managers and leaders visibly demonstrating very regularly activity that calls to the needs that are being talked about in those groups. So one of the things at Collinson that we do a lot of, actually, and we rarely promote it, I think partly because we don't have to, is we've done some really exceptional things. We've gone to exceptional lengths for people that have personally found themselves in trouble, whether there's something awful happened to their families, or they themselves are going through a very difficult time. We've gone to exceptional lengths often to make sure that they feel supported and to get them to a really good place. But I have to say, for every 10 of those people, sadly, there's probably 300 that we can't, or 400 that we can't get to. Yeah. But what people do see, without us even talking about this, because word spreads, is actually a sense of, and I think you mentioned it earlier, a sense of authenticity, which is, really trying to do the right thing. And that's why it comes back to, I think, people and culture, or HR as a profession. One of the biggest way that we've transformed or that we have evolved is actually our ability every day to come in and be willing to put our jobs on the line. And I think if we're not prepared to do that every single day, then we're failing our organisation. If I lost my job tomorrow, I'd need the money, right? I've got lots of security I need to look after, and I've got a family. But I would be happy to lose my job any day if it meant doing the right thing, and at least I know that in my own conviction, I can hold my head up high.
To be able to work without fear is a big thing, isn't it? And I know that can be on so many different levels. Yeah. But actually, to turn up and be able to put your voice out there, and it's not about being outspoken, it's about being able to share what you really passionately believe in. Now, you might have to receive something back, which is totally. You might actually be turned round in an argument. But I think particularly what I see with our employees internally here, people joining the group here, but also how we recruit for our clients. That voice needs to be heard. People are recruiting on the basis that I want you to come in with an opinion.
Yes.
Whether it's right, wrong, whether it's different. Actually, I like the difference of opinion. But what I can't have is you being in a meeting, not saying anything, and having a meeting outside the room. Have a voice. Put your point forward.
And it's I completely agree. And it's being willing to commit to having courageous conversations and having them regularly. If people really know, because they can see that you're authentic in what you're trying to do, they'll know that that's coming from a good place. I don't know anyone that comes into work every day thinking, today I'm going to make everyone angry and annoy everybody that I come into contact with. Yeah. Most people, 99% of us, I would suggest, come in with the best intentions. So I think it's also important that we take that into consideration when we meet challenges, or people are pushing against us and they have a different view. But guess what? We also don't need to win everything, right? Yeah. So, my gosh, if I thought that me and my team had to win every battle that we have in our organisation every day, we'd be exhausted and burnt out long time ago.
Have you had to kind of develop a construct? So I run board meetings here, and I keep talking to people around, state your intention, give a positive challenge, and actually it really drives a debate. But that is a learned behaviour. Yeah. So many people, I don't like that, or they'll talk forever and only tell you what they really mean at the end of it. That I support you in this, or I disagree with you. Have you had to kind of develop that construct at all?
Yeah. So what? Yes, and it's a good question. So what I've become less of a fan of, at Collinson we've got some great collaboration platforms like Teams and Workplace, and
we were just talking about it before.
Oh man, they're really helping our organisation. But having the conversations in time, when having the honest conversations at the point of when something's happening is really important. And I think rather than set out an agenda and a manifesto, and those things are really great. I think it's often, sadly, as soon as things get written onto paper, they very often ended up in the drawer. So certainly for my team, if I give you an example, my global head of people development, when he joined, I asked him to put together a management program. And he came to me really excited and he went, "I've done it, you're going to love it." I was like, that's great, Danny. And he's amazing. Yeah. I said, "That's great, are you proud of it?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Is this what your peers would be doing in other companies?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, take it away and rip it up. He went, what? Even to this day, he still laughs. Yeah. And he was horrified. And I was like, you've got an opportunity to do something really unique. Actually, every one of us have. Yeah. Do not fall into the trap that we need to stick to the same tools and processes, etc., that we've always done in our profession. We can reinvent this, and you know what? We can have a bit of fun with it as well. Yeah. No one's going to get hurt in the making of this movie. So he came back to me and came even more invigorated, if not a little nervous. And the programs now that we have in place are incredible, like really great.
I guess that takes you back to start from a different place, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know, don't bring in what you've always done.
Yeah.
So if you think back then, what are the big ticket items that you've been able to achieve at Collinson? What were the real game changers? I think you've touched on a few. I think the belonging piece is actually very topical and very now. But when you look back, what are the big things that you've been able to push forwards?
Well, so we're talking here a lot about successes. Perhaps at the end we talk about some of the failings. Actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
We might talking a little bit about that because like every other organisation, I've got challenges.
Yeah.
There are things that we've not been able to crack, a great deal of them, and there are disappointments every day. But those aren't the things that keep us going, right? That those are the things that we want to change and make a positive impact on. They're still the things that we the cups that we want to win.
Yeah.
So I think some of my big successes is one of them actually is what I've called digitally enabling our culture.
Yes.
So I don't think HR or people and culture are there to support the business. I think we're there to enable the business, and that's really quite different. So we've been digitally enabling the culture, and of course some of the feedback we get is not another platform, we don't need any more technology, no more platform, we've got too much. But ultimately I look at anything that's cyclical, anything that's repetitive in relation to people and culture. That should be taken. We've got technology in most cases that can take care of that. The beauty of doing that is you look to drive efficiencies and streamline and the apps that we have on our phones every day. People work in the digital world. For most of us, as soon as they walk over our threshold into our buildings, we expect them to work and think very differently.
Yeah, we dumb it down. Absolutely right.
Yeah, it was Patty McCord from Netflix who wrote the Netflix book, Culture Book, which is brilliant, of course. Many of us know that. She said that every day, thousands of our people walk over our thresholds with an enormous amount of power. And the moment they walk over into our businesses, we take that power away. It really resonates with me, that quote. And I think technology can help enable and help make it easier for people to do some of that repetitive stuff. HR should not be threatened by that, because guess what? That means we've got an opportunity to focus on the really important stuff, which are the human beings of our business. Creating an experience where people feel like they can come into work every day and be their best and be themselves, achieve their full potential. And where as a business, we get to benefit from everything that comes from that in terms of our performance.
And if you were to unpack that a bit further then, in terms of the technology, are there any particular either pieces of technology or areas of technology that you've looked at that you'd say, that you'd recommend to people to go and check out for themselves because you've seen the gain from it?
Yeah. So I know I've thought about this. So what if one day I was going to end up being a consultant? What if that was in 3 years' time I was a consultant? There's a few pieces of technology that you could any of you listening. And this isn't all big money, by the way, by any means, because we have to be quite creative sometimes. We've got real investment in our people and culture at Collinson, but very often my team and myself, our focus is we don't want to draw attention to the fact that this is costing a lot of money, so we try to get creative around our efficiencies, right? As most of our listeners will be having to do today. So that will be the introduction of something called BetterWorks.
Okay.
Now, BetterWorks is a really great platform for that you can create and align objectives. So, for example, it's also app enabled. So I can see any colleague in the world, I can see what their business objectives are anywhere in the world on my phone. We have aligned objectives, so I can see how their objectives are aligned right up to the top, from the boardroom to the broom cupboard, which is great. We've also got structured conversations in that. So, for example, in my team, and this is, I've played around with this a lot and it works brilliantly. I have 2 one-to-ones with my leadership team a month. One is half an hour on nothing but objectives through BetterWorks. And the other one is another half an hour 2 weeks later, which is anything of their choice.
Okay.
And in BetterWorks, we've got some really cool structures around it. It can be a wellness, they can choose. Is it a wellness conversation, a career conversation, a development one? You know, we've got a whole host of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But also within BetterWorks, you can give and receive feedback to anyone around the world, and it all goes onto your performance record. It's really cool.
I've been doing some reading around that in different businesses. I think it's Ray Dalio that has his business, and you know they talk about real-time, live, quite punchy feedback. You know, meetings where he'd go into and he'd be scored a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And he owns a company. It's kind of like, okay, you know, what should I do differently? What can I do better? But real-time feedback. I think the ability for people to be able to give feedback on a kind of roundhouse basis is really important, because how many times do people do a 360 in their life? If they're lucky, they'll do it once every 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, that's useless. You know, could I have it once every 5 days, 5 weeks at worst, to get some kind of, you know, real-time feedback and something that's actionable. So you're on a, you know, have you got shares in BetterWorks or anything like that?
No. So I've got no shares.
But is there anything else you need to?
Yeah.
State
promote it. So it's
ties to it, but you think it's good?
Yeah. Well, you know, a number of our executives, including a mutual friend of ours, we won't mention today, had a number of executive coaching sessions, and the feedback through BetterWorks has been more powerful than anything that he's received. But I think the thing about, it's not BetterWorks as a tool. Yeah. Actually, what we've done around digitally enabling is we instead of call it performance management, we coined the term performance engagement, which is more reflective of actually what we're trying to be. We killed off annual appraisals because we all know they frankly don't work. I know some organisations have done that already, like Deloitte, they were one of the first.
They were,
It went too far, took it all away. Now then they needed to put some more structure in. We've introduced the concept of quarterly reviews. They're all processed through BetterWorks. But the beauty of the quarterly reviews are we've used our CEO's primary school children's school report as a framework. So it's really simple. We look at objectives, we say, and the previous period, and we say what went well, even better if. And at this point, we give you a 1 to 5 star rating of this.
I recognise that from my children. That's brilliant.
But it works.
Yeah.
It keeps it uncomplicated, and therefore the focus is very much on the quality of the conversation. The only difference now is that the end of the year, the only difference to that end of year quarter is, and overall, here's your rating. Yeah. So it's because our objectives change so much, and our businesses are changing so much that this enables us to keep in an agile way. So BetterWorks, that's one.
Okay, that's good. What else?
We've got Workplace, Facebook for business.
Yeah, we have that here. Yeah, we love that.
And oh my gosh, its ability to be able to connect people and share stories, and it frustrates the heck out of one of my senior leaders. The fact that one of the most popular forums actually is around the pets of Collinson. and I'm not a pet lover myself, but this is important to our people. And again, we're talking about human beings here. Work will get done, performance will be driven. If we're really interested in connecting our people, then we need to connect in what's personal and important to them as well. So Workplace is fabulous, and we've had, as is Teams, Microsoft Teams, great way of enabling interactions and better collaboration. And the other thing would be something called Impulse, which is a super cool engagement tool. Okay. And it's I don't think engagement surveys work, pure and simple, because you spend a lot of time promoting, you run the surveys, and then you spend months creating and driving action plans. And so the great thing about Impulse is, as I complete it's very dynamic. So it's not like a survey. You move things around and you can prioritize, and it's a very, very cool feel to it. And again, you can use it on your app. And then what you can do is, as soon as I've finished, I can see the ratings, the overall view across the organisation at that point in time immediately. Okay. There is no need to wait. So it's much more transparent.
What's the frequency that you put stuff out through that then? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? Is it? Because theoretically you can use it in real time for anything.
Yeah, I mean, we had explored the concept of doing it and always on. So people, if I feel something, I'm going to go and share it with you, whether it's happy or angry or stressed, etc. So, but we actually run it twice a year at the moment. Okay. Just to kind of keep somewhat of a bit of a control on it, so that, because this is why engagement surveys don't work, because we raise an expectation that we're going to do something about pretty much everything that anybody mentions. Completely unrealistic. Yeah. So all we do is we have We do a piece of activity from right through from top to bottom of the organisation, from regions, divisions, functions. What are 3 things you're going to do? 3 things, no more than that. What are 3 things you're going to do as a result of the feedback? But you know what? If I multiply those 3 things right across the organisation every 6 months, that's some really meaningful activity and payback.
And big steps forward.